God is dead. Those were the words of the famous German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche in the late 19th century. And while those words might sound like a direct challenge against the very core and root of all religious claim, we're not backing down from it in this video. What did Nietzsche mean when he said this provocative statement? And why is it still relevant for us today in the modern age? Before we get into this video, guys, my name is Colby, and this channel exists to teach truth, build disciples, and develop a community of thought leaders in the Christian sphere. If you aren't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. Friedrich Nietzsche's statement, "God is dead," is a famous and often misunderstood phrase. And I often find it interesting how frequently it's quoted in the mouths of skeptics and atheists alike. But it's important to note that Nietzsche was not making a definitive statement, or a literal statement for that matter, about the existence of God. That's a very, very critical disclaimer to highlight, especially for those who would seek to use his statement to validate their own position in the absurdity of the notion of God. But his statement was not a direct assertion of God's non-existence. Rather, it reflected the idea that the notion and belief of God, particularly within the vein of Judeo-Christianity, was fading in the modern age. See, Nietzsche's prognostication was that the death of God would inevitably lead to the collapse of society's moral architecture, meaning that Nietzsche was far more concerned with the implications of society's loss of faith, with its impact on meaning and morality, rather than making a definitive statement about God's existence. See, prior to the rise of modernity, morality was primarily predicated upon the Judeo-Christian ethos, and that its fading influence was cause for great alarm and concern in questioning what would then be the future basis that would constitute the bedrock of society's moral framework. And that's because historically the moral scaffolding in the West was primarily reinforced by Judeo-Christian beliefs and values. And these all played a very pivotal role in shaping the social norms and ethical principles which governed the West for centuries prior to the Enlightenment. But as modernity unfolded, there was a notable shift in the intellectual, cultural, and social landscape. And this era saw advancements in science, the rise of secularism, and an increasing emphasis on humanism and reason and individual autonomy. Thus, the authority of traditional religious sentiments began to wane, leading to this broad questioning of conventional moral norms, and more specifically, what would then hold our collective sense of morality together if not belief in a divine authority. Thus came Nietzsche, whose thought not only aligned with this cultural moment, but he was acutely aware of the greater consequences of its changing dynamics. And his proclamation that God is dead encapsulates this idea that the traditional religious underpinning of objective morality was in fact crumbling to pieces right in front of them. Now, a case can actually be made that Nietzsche was very critical of what he perceived as the potential pitfalls associated with rejecting religious structures, particularly with regard to objective morality. Nietzsche was wary of a simplistic descent into moral relativism in the absence of divine moral authority. In other words, without God, you fall into the subjectivist trap. Without God, any type of perceived sense of injustice, evil, or malevolence is simply another form of relativism or moral subjectivity. And that's because if there's no transcendent reference point or transcendent good by which to create a baseline level for meaning and for morality, everything collapses into nihilism and relativism. It's hard to make a case for evil unless a transcendent good or God remains the a priori. Look, if you want to learn more about philosophy, religion, and the Bible, check out the link below in the description and let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you think that God is dead or very much alive and necessary for us today.